Cowboys Day, we're going to talk about the market. And we're going to talk about what's really happening in the housing industry right now. We all know that the media, this is a technical term, in most cases, and Clayton and I are both media, but most media, mainstream that's not in the industry suck. They want headlines. They want you to be attracted to negativity, but most of the time when they're reporting, it's not right. It's not real. It's not what's happening in the market. It's not what's trending in the market. So what's really nice is Clayton has chosen to join us because he's with HousingWire. This is where I get a lot of my information. So I can pull up headlines and info and updates and all that from HousingWire on a regular basis. So I know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
And it's updated all day long. So, without further ado, we have the CEO of HousingWire and a good friend and a great dude in the industry. We align ourselves with the best of the best and people that are givers, people that like to give back to the industry, love our industry, give back to our industry, support our industry, educate our industry. And Clayton is perfect for that. And that's why we've aligned with Clayton and love this guy, love going to his events. We went to do your gathering event was off the charts.
I
It
fully
was
agree.
it was so good. And you're gonna see when we at Sales Meshing, you're like, hey, that looks familiar. And plagiarisms, flattery. We liked a lot of stuff you did. And because it was impactful, it was fun, and you did a great job of creating an experience. That's what we want to have at our events, is not just education, but also an experience. And we'll talk more about that towards the end. But right now, Clayton, for this Clayton Collins, CEO, why don't you give us a little rundown of what Housing Wire is? Because not everybody here, unless you're hidden under a rock, you don't know who Clayton is or Housing Wire. Give us a little Reader's Digest version so people have a better idea.
Well, Don, I'm not going to miss an opportunity to talk about my business that I've been working
Right?
in for nearly a decade, and I have a lot of passion for, and all of my net worth tied up in. So I care about it a lot. Let's be real there. But before we talk about
I
can
understand that part.
I come back to the comment around the media's view of the housing industry? I want to tackle that from like an angle that I don't think you and I have tackled before. And one of the reasons that I find housing so exciting is because it is a marketplace. And I think that is where covering housing from a business media perspective or a consumer media perspective or an event organizer's perspective, or as a professional who offers advice to prospective home buyers and sellers, the fact that it's a marketplace and different dynamics impact different marketplace players differently is something that's really important to talk about. Now, I know in this episode, Don, we want to talk about the data. We're going to talk about applications. We're going to talk about home prices. We're going to talk about what we expect to happen in rates and what we have to look ahead to. But I can tell you right now, we are approaching a time period where we may see, and we have seen in many markets of the US, see home prices decline. That is a negative headline. It is an extremely positive dynamic for other market participants. And we can go as deep into that as you want. I think we should dissect that more later, but I really want to just like come out the gate and say that the way I look at this industry and the way I'd like to approach a big part of this conversation is with acknowledgement that this is a marketplace and there are asset pricing, volume, velocity considerations that make the market better or worse for different players. And like that's something I think we could spend hours talking about, but I don't want to miss the opportunity to at least like put that stake in the ground that we should spend some time on that, Don.
And I love that because um, headlines are different from what the real market is, and I love that you show that there's different marketplaces. Some marketplaces are potentially going to have a decline in prices. We'll talk about what that means, though, because a lot of people, like you said, think it's a negative, but it can be a positive for a lot of people. It can be a positive for the market because there was a stage where prices were going up so much and so fast that it hurt affordability. And then we have high interest rates, therefore hurting affordability. So those two things put together is why the market has slowed and why you're seeing some, I won't call them adjustments, wouldn't you? Not just price decreases. I know in my market here, a lot of people are throwing out big numbers, hoping that they'll just get the next higher number, even if their home's not worth it. I'm seeing homes that threw out there and they didn't have an upgrade for 30 years. I'm like, you're not getting top dollar for that. But when you have no inventory, you may. Right now, we've increased inventory. What we're up probably 25% this year. Is that about right? Somewhere around there?
Yeah, we've been at certain points in the year, we've been up as much as 40% over last year. Uh,
Okay.
right now, at a national level, we're sitting at yeah, I'll come back to that. Sorry, refreshing my screen real quick, but I'll come back to you on the national number in a minute.
I love that. This is cool because Clayton's got numbers. He's got a whole team of people that actually watch and understand the numbers. He's got Logan on his team, who's a guru in the industry. This guy is like Mr. Wizard when it comes to numbers and stats and markets and all that. So Clayton does a great job, like I do, is surrounding myself by great people.
Yeah, so we added a section to the HousingWire homepage, and I'll tee me into talking about HousingWire for a second. That has a market dashboard, so you can subscribers can go in, see national data, and compare national data to local. So we have
Nice.
860,000 active listings in the U.S. right now. We measure active a little bit differently than the National Association of Realtors does. They often include homes that are pending or under contract and don't pull them out of inventory until they're closed. We look at it as the true active numbers, the number of homes that a prospective home buyer could actually put an offer in on today. So not pending, not under contract. So we have 860,000 homes nationally. 90 days ago, just 90 days ago, that was 800,000. So we've added nearly 60,000 homes to inventory this summer alone, which is a positive dynamic for real estate agents and lending professionals who thrive in volume. As everybody knows, we had a major challenge in the market over the last 24 months where there was a lot of sellers who were afraid to list because they didn't know if they could buy the next house after their home sold. They didn't like the interest rate that they'd be faced with if they did find that home. And
Right.
seeing inventory climb up actually brings more confidence to sellers that they can find the next home once they sell theirs. Market dynamics are ever changing, but as we go
Right.
into the fall in a lot of markets in the country, it's a pretty attractive time to be a buyer from an inventory perspective compared to what we've had in recent years. So we bring that data to HousingWire users and subscribers on the homepage in chart format. We also bring it in articles and podcasts every single day. So at HousingWire, our mission is to help housing professionals make better decisions faster. As an executive and entrepreneur, that's all I care about is how can I make the best decisions possible for my business and do it faster. And so as I try to reflect what I care about as an operator and entrepreneur on the business that I'm building, knowing that I'm serving a very entrepreneurial community of professionals, executives, LOs, agents, a very entrepreneurial bunch. And so I think like what fuels me and drives me as an entrepreneur, I think I can reflect that back on our clients and audience and feel that same mission and vision to provide the information that helps you make better decisions faster. So we have the data, we have the podcast where Logan and Sarah talk about the data and the headlines every single day on the Housing Wire Daily podcast. We bring our audience that we usually have the opportunity to interact with digitally in person 4 times a year at different events that we hold, a gathering that Don mentioned earlier, as well as our one-day summits that we host here in Dallas. And we also have a data business called Altos that real estate agents and originators and title professionals use for a more granular look into local market housing data and really getting like comparative and granular with those metrics that I was talking about and active inventory and number of homes pending, price per square foot, all of the trends broken out by quartile in every zip code in the country. So as we bring and build this business, I'm heavily focused on what do we do that helps agents and originators succeed, do more deals, provide better advice. And as an information services business, we believe that we can empower our clients and our users to win with better and faster information. So that's the high level, Don.
No, it's so much more. If you guys go and pull up Housing Wire, You'll see that there's news, events, videos, altos, which is the data that he spoke of, real trends, housing water. There's so much on here, but the key thing, and I love you brought up, Clayton, is the hard thing I see out in the markets because I'm out there and I do most of the presentations for our team, is that people are misinformed on a regular basis. And one of our speakers is going to talk about this. It's called indifference. Like you're just posting to post, but do you have an opinion? Like Clayton, you do a good job of giving your opinion and what happened. I'm starting to do that more rather than, hey, look at me, look at me. Now it's, hey, I saw this headline, but let me break it down for you because the perfect example, I'll give you a super easy example any of you can understand is that the headlines will push up because they want you to freak out and click on it and find out what's going on because negativity sells 8 times over positively. It was nine, which is called 8 to 9 times more. Bottom line is it sells more. So a perfect negative thing was they just recently had a headline where their foreclosures are up higher than all year, for a year. Well,
Foreclosures are
that
up
that
of
means
off of
nothing.
all-time bottoms. Like, come on.
Right. The all-time bottom. And that's something you could talk about. What's really nice is what Clayton and HousingWire provide is stuff for you to talk about so that people feel you have to build trust. And especially now more than ever, a lot of us are nervous about AI. AI is going to take our jobs, this and that. Well, AI can support our jobs, but they're not going to take it because now when I talk to clients, and Clayton, I love your opinion on this, and nothing against AI, but it has made more clients nervous because they're afraid that it might not be real. Like the info that's coming back is just AI generated. It's not a real person giving their advice. And I know Michelle Berman is going to talk about indifference, meaning if you don't have an opinion, you're just noise. So if you can take the data from Housing Wire and break it apart and help people understand it, like the foreclosure issue, and say, hey, yes, the news says that foreclosures are at the highest they've been in a year. That's starting from zero. It's still below normal trends. Normal trends are this. And here's where we're at today. At less than 0.5% of all homes have anything that's even delinquent at all. We're at some of the lowest levels ever because most, thank goodness, over the last 5 years have gained equity. And if you have equity, you're not foreclosing your home. Worst case, you sell it. So those are perfect ideas of headlines and why Housing Wire is so great to have because it's real data, real timely. You guys, I mean, I watch all day long. The news comes out all day long, like something new, something new, something new, something trending, and you can always talk about it.
Well,
I love your opinions on that, Clayton.
it's man, the sometimes the misunderstanding of the market just frustrates me to the point where I don't even know what to say or have an
Right?
opinion, Don. At Housing Wire, we report down the center and like we report when there's negative market dynamics and we report when there's positive market dynamics. And there's been plenty of times, and even in the last 5 years, there's a lot of negative things to talk about, even when people think that the market is really positive. So like it kind of reminds me of the situation in 2020 and 2021 where Logan was writing, podcasting, pounding the table that we're in a terribly unhealthy housing market. And if depending on where you are in the marketplace, it might not have felt that way. Originators and agents were doing a ton of business. Home prices were shooting up. But what Logan was talking about is where the market was going and how unhealthy the extremely low interest rate environment and high home price appreciation dynamic would be to the long term of the housing market. The issues we're dealing with today are the hangover of the unhealthy market that Logan was pounding the table on in 2021. We're still dealing with those and we'll deal with them for years to come. So we talked about the negative then when everything felt rosy and awesome. And today, when things kind of feel recessionary in some parts of the market, there might be a headline out there about foreclosure, and interest rates are sticking much higher than we'd like them to be for way too long. There's
True
actually
that.
a lot of positivity to find. So in the last, we've seen mortgage applications grow week over week for nearly the last 28 weeks. We're seeing more consumers come to originators earlier in their home search process because they're trying to figure out the affordability equation. So let's stop on that for a second. consumers are changing their buying pattern and talking to originators before they seriously start their home search or before they talk to agents. That's a dynamic we don't have in all markets. So take that as a positive. How are we going to use that dynamic to build stronger relationships and retain those borrowers when they move from pre-approval to offer to close? So that's a positive dynamic we have in the market right now. We also have a dynamic where interest rate spreads, while rates are not where we want them to be, spreads are down 80 basis points from where they have been
Huge.
at the high. So we are in the very beginning phases of an interest rate down cycle. We hosted an event on Wednesday night. Myself, Jennifer Laws, our head of sales, Logan Moshami, were there with one of our clients, Sapiens. We had about 20 mortgage execs in the room. And Logan kicked off the conversation talking about how we're in this new cycle where we're actually in a downward rate environment. Now, the timing of that, there's still a lot to be discussed, and we can debate over how hard or how the Federal Reserve will act in their decisions in the coming weeks, and if we're going to see the Fed funds rate come down seriously. But there are a lot of positive dynamics that mean we're starting a point where one way or another, depending on the timing, the rates are going to come down and spreads are cooperating. So we're entering this cycle where affordability is moving in the right direction from a rate perspective as well as a home price perspective. We have not seen the home price appreciation in 2025 that we've seen in recent years. Now, depending on how you dissect that headline, someone else is going to say, home prices are no longer appreciating. Why would you buy rent forever? You're not going to you're not going to make money on this trade. But like the smart consumer or the housing professional who guides the smart consumer can advise a client on how to buy well in a market where the buyer and seller dynamics are shifting a little bit. I am Don. I am under contract to buy a house right now and under contract to sell a house right now. I'm eating my own dog food on that this is the appropriate time to be in the market before we see a lower interest rate environment that may or may not push home price appreciation back to levels that make us uncomfortable.
Do you put your dog food in the refrigerator?
Our dog's adopted. He doesn't get refrigerated food.
Right? You see all those commercials. But I love that, Clayton, because it is a dynamic that you can talk about. Because, like right now, it was a challenge when we didn't have inventory. There weren't affordability issues, or appreciation levels were so high that sellers are like, oh, or buy, yeah, people are buying just because they know they're going to appreciate. But the challenge was is sellers weren't willing to sell because they're not sure if they can find their next home, as you mentioned earlier. So it's actually not a bad time for buyers or sellers. Yes, the sellers may not get a 5% appreciation over the year, but the market's still strong. There's still pent up demand. There's people that want homes. If rates continue to improve, that helps affordability. And now they feel more comfortable with the fact that they can sell their home and go find another home. Like you said, I talked to a ton. They're like, I'm just not putting my house on the market because I can't find another one. So that
Yeah,
is a good dynamic.
like it or not, I'd say we're entering a normal market. There's balance. There's
Yeah.
balance between number of sellers, there's balance between number of buyers. Inventory is returning to levels that are palatable. Historically, we've seen inventory levels 30% more than what we have today. So, like you really study history, you could say we're still in a very inventory constrained market,
Yeah.
even though there will be headlines that say inventory is shooting through the roof and records levels we haven't seen before. But the only people who are saying it's levels we haven't seen before are people who haven't studied the history of housing or can't read a chart. We're like,
Or
it's
don't have the access
it's
to the
mind blowing.
charts.
Yeah.
That's why they need HousingWire, right?
Yeah.
You get
No,
access to all this info on a regular
what we're here
basis.
for. And like I don't know, I often get put on the pedestal like this, Don, like to be the one who talks about the housing market. But I really the advantage I have is I get to surround myself with smart people. So I've mentioned Logan a few times. We have fabulous journalists and Flavia and Brookley and Sarah Wheeler and Tracy Bell, and Neil Pearson, who are in the market every day, uncovering stories, analyzing data, and digging in to the information and people that housing professionals need to know and want to hear from. And so my advantage is being surrounded with smart people. I'll admit that I'm way more adept at running businesses and acquiring and growing businesses than being the housing analyst. But when you dedicate this much of your life to one sector, you learn a thing or two.
No doubt, Clayton. All right, we're going to ask those. All right, hopefully you guys are paying attention out there. I'm going to ask you a question before we get Clayton to give his opinion. He already kind of hinted at it, but it's a topic two things I definitely wanted to cover today, and one of them is put a yes or no if you feel that rates are going to continue to improve throughout the rest of this year. All right, we're getting some people that are, I know.
Ooh, who's the no?
We got a couple of no's. And we got some yeses, more yeses than no. But I'm curious, and I'll be curious in chat for those because most are feeling yes. And I agree with slowly over time. I feel they have to start lowering, and we can and Clayton and I will go deep into that why. But I'm curious in chat, the couple of people that put no, explain why you feel that it's not going to go down. Maybe just because we've been saying that for 3 years, and even Habib, who I love and adore and follow, May 10th, we remember that date. That's where rates are going to go down, and we're going to have a refi boom. And that was 2 years over two, well over 2 years ago. So we've been waiting for rates to go down for quite some time, 3 years now. And now everybody's getting a little numb to it, I think. But it happens. I've been in this industry 38 years, and rates do fluctuate. They go up and down. And usually the Fed waits too long to raise rates. That's why we get inflation. And then they wait too long to lower rates. And that's why we get a recession. So they're doing their typical, what I'm seeing. They should have been lowering rates a while ago. I think there's a lot of pressure for them to finally start lowering rates in September. What do you think, Clayton?
Yes, I think there's pressure and a probability that we're going to see the expected rate cut in mid-September. The issue with that, Don, is it's fully expected. And if we don't get a rate cut in September, we're going to see rates
Ugh.
move upward. And if we do get
Yep.
a 50 bip rate cut in September, we're going to see rates stay flat. So like it is this is a priced in dynamic.
It is, but what I feel based on my experience is because it's expected, I feel that you'll continue to start seeing rates go towards the lower end of where it would have been. Like you said, they'll price it in, but that'll give us an opportunity for rates to continue to go down between now and September 17th.
And it's like everyone likes to talk about like the actual Fed action, like the adjustment to the target Fed funds rate. But what's proven to be way more important to mortgage rates is the nuanced verbal guidance that we get from the Fed chair in the
Right.
message. And that's where you can really differentiate your knowledge is by listening to the words that Jerome Powell or whoever the Fed chair is in the future uses versus the exact specific Fed action of holding, lowering, or raising the target Fed funds rate. The messaging here is the nuance in the messaging is incredibly important. And what we've been talking about at HousingWire is that we know Powell's term is up next year. We know there's extreme pressure on Powell to either resign or drastically reduce rates, but we don't necessarily need him to resign to see the market change. I think we're approaching a point potentially in the coming weeks where the White House does officially nominate the next Fed chair. And that would create a scenario where that person's words, even though they won't have the power to change rates themselves, which no Fed chair does. It's a committee, they vote
Right.
on it.
They vote.
But even when a Fed chair is named, the effect of a shadow Fed chair steps in, and their power becomes pretty significant through the words that they choose as they prepare to officially take the chair seat in 2026. So
Well,
that's
especially
where like the
I'll
nuance
touch
of
on that
language really starts to
real
matter.
quick. I would just want to touch on that real quick so everybody understands where you're I feel you're going on that is that person that comes in could be dovish or hawkish, meaning dovish meaning they tend to want lower rates, hawkish meaning they are very tight. They like higher rates. So the person that goes into that chair, depending on if they're dovish or hawkish, does show the trend of where the Fed may be going. Am I right,
And
Clayton?
there's, I would bet a significant amount of money that there is zero probability there's a hawkish
I
Fed.
feel the same way.
Like there, it will. I think even Fed governors who have voted against a rate cut in recent meetings, um, the tea leaves would read that those people have disqualified themselves from the Fed chair seat. So it's a very high probability scenario that we see the next Fed chair that is named as someone who has voted for rate cuts in recent
Mhm.
meetings and has a dovish view on where US interest rate policy needs to go to support the broader economy. So here in housing, we feel like this is all about us. It's not all about us. There's a lot of other sectors and trade and economic drivers that are influenced by the Fed funds rate and the Fed sentiment and tone. We are obviously very heavily impacted. But I'm of the camp and would place a significant wager that we have a pretty dovish Fed chair named in the coming weeks.
Yeah, Jeff Scott agrees with you. No way that we're going to get a hawkish. And I'm right there with you, Jeff. And I love what Carolyn wrote because the Fed is stubborn and cannot see employment data that's right in front of them. And I'm right there with you. That's the challenge that upsets, Trump and the rest of us is that are they not looking at the trend of where the employment is going and therefore a concern because they tend to wait till it's too late and then more people lose jobs because of it because they haven't stimulated the economy. Perfect example, if rates go down, one of the biggest factors that can improve the economy is the housing. When housing goes up, jobs go up, spending goes up, everything goes up because of, housing is just a big factor in GDP. And that's why it's really important to stimulate. And that's why you hear Trump, and I'm not choosing sides, I'm just saying that's why you hear Trump, who's a businessman in real estate, and I go, this can help our economy and we need to lower rates now.
But it takes a balanced hand. So like we talked about inventory in the beginning of the conversation. And if there was a major cut in interest rates and we're to go back sub five, housing demand is going to shoot up so fast. Home price appreciation is going to shoot up so fast. We could end up in a worse affordability scenario than we're in today. And home builders will be motivated to build. They won't be able to build fast enough to stop the near-term pain of the next few years. So like if I am like Fed chair, which I probably will be, I think that's the most probable outcome, Don. I'm going to hold a pretty balanced hand of rate reduction that stimulates housing, but also gives home builders the incentive and the guidance to get to work on building some inventory because
Right.
that's what we need in the long term to
Yeah, it's
stop home price
amazing.
appreciation shooting up and creating a complete haves and have-nots in the housing market. We're seeing data start to pop that repeat home buyers are taking up a significantly higher share than you'd like to see in a market with such a young Gen Z and millennial population. So we want a market where first-time home buyers can come in and access inventory, and we don't create an environment where repeat buyers sit on all the housing wealth and nobody else can get into the market because that just means we're setting ourselves up for another bust in 12 or 15 years.
Yeah, we don't need that. We've already lived through that. Don't want to see that. So, on that note, when you're talking about the bust, you'll see headlines that will talk about that the market's going to crash, especially since you're starting to see some price reductions. But it's not because of a housing crash. A housing crash, again, is usually supply and demand. And you probably know the stats better than me, Clayton. I'm going to tee you up on this, but I believe everything I'm reading because we have had no building hardly for 10 years. They're just trying to catch up, but they can't even keep up with household formations. That we're like 6 to 7 million homes still shy nationwide, meaning we don't have enough supply still. Plain and simple. Do you agree?
I completely agree. And you know how I joked that I put my money where my mouth is, and I'm actually selling a house and buying a house right now. We also bought a new media business this summer called The Builders Daily, which focuses on new home construction. So like I'm literally steering my business toward like the opportunity that I think sits in front of us. That new home construction from the large production builders as well as regional and custom builders has a very serious bull run ahead of it. as we face two dynamics: the 6 to 7 million homes that you just mentioned, Don, that we're short on nationally, but also a very notably aging housing stock. We have a lot of homes in this country that were built in the 50s, 60s, 70s that do not meet the demands of today's buyer. They need renovation, they need demo, they need rebuilding, whatever the situation is. But we are facing a market where we have not enough inventory, and the inventory that exists is aging out. And we need construction, and we need like motivated rate policy to enable this and bolster builder confidence to come back into the arena. So yeah, the Builders Daily right now it rides as a separate, a totally separate website in the HW Media ecosystem. But you'll see more and more integration of home building content into HousingWire in the coming months and years.
You guys are always expanding, and I know you're doing it so you can provide more data, more information, more value by being part of Housing Wire. Like I said, it's something you should be checking out daily. You always will have content to talk about because you just, posting generalized stuff, I think, is not doing you justice. Right now, people want educated people that are in the know. And it's a very confusing market right now with all that's going on between rates and housing and potential price reductions in certain areas, especially for higher end homes. Because I know, like in our market here in Los Angeles, Clayton, it went to a standstill once the tariffs hit because of the wealth effect, meaning people were nervous about what's going to happen to their 401ks, their jobs, and so forth, that they weren't willing to dive into a $1 million plus home. Under a million, still moving because it's entry level, but above a million, I know, and Jeff, I know he's in my market too, can say the same thing that it slowed down quite a bit. Now, once rates go down, people feel more comfortable, and the market will heat back up, and we're starting to see more activity. Thank goodness. Now that rates have come down a little bit, believe it or not, rates are almost where they were in March, April, when the
Mhm.
market was pretty hot. They're not quite where they were last September, but they could get down there again. And then people feel comfortable when they're in the low sixes and high fives.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. I mean, our analysis has, shown that this market turns on in a very serious way from a volume perspective as soon as mortgage 30-year average fixed rate mortgages hit 6% or even slightly above or slightly below.
yep.
That's a confidence level that we see the market getting really active on. And like I think confidence is a really important part of this ecosystem. I mean, Don,
Hmm.
you mentioned how the market froze up in LA around the tariff talks and what would happen to people's stock market portfolios. Those freezes do happen, and they happen when confidence gets rattled. But those confidence rattles around recessionary periods historically are pretty quick. And with the exception of '07, '08, '09, the GFC, housing has been a safe haven in economic recessionary times. And I know many folks that have been around the housing industry for to see a cycle or two find themselves rooting for some bad data at times. We know a bad jobs report or a bad
Right.
inflation report, yeah, bad jobs report
Or stocks are going down.
going down can be a boon for our sector. And I hate to be dismissive of consumer concerns about the health of the housing market, but the data tells us a pretty clear story: is that housing cycles front run economic cycles. Housing just went through a very tough period. There are some signals that there may be some recessionary indicators in the broader economy. For us, that means we've navigated our cycle and we're moving into a period of growth, but that doesn't mean the whole economy will experience that growth simultaneously.
Let's dive into that real quick. This is probably the highlight. Okay, you guys are get off your email real quick. This is really, really important because we've had, like a lot of you commented, and I really want you to understand this because it's been a rough 3 years. I get it. Usually the cycles are two, 2.5, and now we're going to three, which is a long haul. We went from 400,000 plus LOs down to 117,000. Out of 117,000, I'd say maybe 50,000 are working on a regular basis. So, those of you and thank you, you guys are on this call for a reason. You've still made it. This is your passion. This is what you love to do. You believe in our industry. The good news is what Clayton just said, is that those of us who have survived have navigated it to get to this stage because recessionary times are actually good for our market because rates go down. So I just want to clarify that because you can let a lot of the real estate partners and your team members know that you're close. I know we've been touting that rates are going to go down eventually, but do you feel we're in recessionary times right now, Clayton?
I think history shows us that most people don't know you're in a recession until you're 6 months to a year into a recession.
Right?
Most people don't know you're in a bull run until 3 to 6 months after it started. Um, I'll focus more on housing and make the bold call that we've already started a pretty strong upcycle. We just haven't completely seen it yet.
All right. So give me
I think
your
I think we're gonna
opinions.
look back and say the next bull housing cycle started in spring, summer 2025. This is like the beginning stages of something really interesting.
I know in our market, we're hoping it starts in fall because it hasn't started yet. We thought it was going to happen in spring, but we got shut down by the tariffs, the fears of tariffs and what that was going to do to the economy, due to our 401ks, our jobs, and all that. So we're hoping it starts picking up because once it does become a trend, does it not, Clayton? Like everybody starts feeling comfortable, which makes other people feel comfortable. They start talking positively, and then they're like, "Oh, I want to be part of that." It's a mindset thing that does control the market as well, correct?
Completely. Like when you're at the neighborhood barbecue and someone's sharing a bad experience about listing their home and it not selling, none of the other neighbors want to list, or listing a home and it going for 5, 8, 10% under ask. Well, that creates some fear. So like positive anecdotes can spread quickly inside of neighborhoods and communities and in amongst networks. So originators who have positive stories to hear of helping their clients navigate what's perceived as a very tough market to get to a desirable outcome, the rate they could afford, the neighborhood they wanted to be in, the school district they wanted to be in, get to that desirable outcome and not harp on the fact that they may have traded a 3% rate for a 6.5% rate. We got to remember that like housing for most of us is an extremely important part of our overall net worth and like financial picture, but it's also still like the place where you need to live that hopefully is like close to work and close to school and has the right number of bedrooms, and helping clients achieve those outcomes helps them provide confidence to their neighbors and cousins and family members and colleagues who might be a little bit rattled. So I don't know. Telling good stories is important.
I agree. And I think it's more important than ever because it is a home you live in. Housing always, I will say always, goes up over time, meaning there can be dips, but over time, because I know I bought my house in 2003 and it's more than doubled. Despite the crash, my house is still over double what I paid for it and then some. So over time, it's still a great investment. Right now, though, it's important when you talk to your clients. There was a time, during what 2003 to 2007, it was kind of speculative because anybody can get into a home and a home more that they couldn't even afford. So therefore, they're like, I can get a home of my dreams versus the home I afford. I can get the home of my dreams, and it became speculative because prices just kept going up because people would just state their income or no income and all that. So loose lending standards did blow up our market without a doubt. And I think
Definitely
now
still have
people need
today.
a home for life, basically. And they're moving now instead of 3 to 5 years, it's 7 to 10 years, right?
But like those the we this is old news to everybody on this call, but like today's average FICOs are through the roof. Average LTV in this country amongst existing homeowners is 47% right now. We're sitting on a ton of equity, a ton of really high quality credit profiles amongst prospective buyers and owners. That the health metrics are almost like too good. Like they're so good right now. There's arguments that we need to be a little bit looser to help expand access to home ownership, but
Yeah.
that's not the most important topic when we're inventory constrained.
All right. So we have about 15 minutes left, and we got some stuff to share with you at the end. But what kind of questions? Either raise your hand, we can bring you up, or put it in chat. But you have Clayton here, Mr. Housing Wire. Ask your questions. Whether it's where you feel the market's going, or that you've checked out Housing Wire and you see some of their uh, things that are on their news feeds and stuff like that. I mean, it's everything. It's not just about
Yeah.
housing, it's about the industry. You're going to learn about companies that are buying and selling, companies that are in trouble, people that are in trouble. It's kind of fun to see, so you're in the know, but it also educates you on where the housing is going, who's thinking what the feds are saying, and so forth. And you can be in the know. It's really important. But I was just curious if anybody had any specific questions. Jeff, you have anything? Phil,
Anything. Is Logan's hair as good as it looks? Like anything you want to
right?
know.
Well, I can tell you've been in the industry. We all have over time, we just don't keep that full head of hair. You have more than me, but it's just so tough in our industry.
Damn, Don, straight for it in a live webinar, making fun of my hairline.
No, you got way more than me, so
Uh,
you're less stressed than me. I got a hat on.
I'll remember that next time we're on stage
Yeah,
together.
you throw me under the bus anytime, buddy. I'm okay with that. I throw myself under the bus. But so what else can we share with the stats and all that before we go into you have an upcoming event, we have an upcoming event that we have a special for you on, because I think there's a time when through the struggle, but like you said, there's a transition now to where we've kind of navigated through the worst of it, I feel, and now it's time more than ever to get educated and get re-energized about the industry. It's been tough. I have a team. I'm in the grind. I understand the plight. I understand the challenges. But right now, I think more than ever, if you can surround yourself by like-minded people and get fresh ideas of what's working in today's market now, network, get some motivation, all that, you'll actually be re-energized about the market, and it'll carry into your success. Guarantee. If you're like, wowsy, wowsy, me, your business is going to be that. As soon as you're excited about your job and now you have new strategies and new information to share and how to share it, it's going to change your world. And then there's only so many of us left. I mean, three-quarters almost of our competition's gone. So when it turns and you're the guiding light, you're going to succeed. And that's what we want, why you need to go to events more than ever, so you're in the know.
I think that's a great point. And for better or for worse, I think events like the ones we host at Housing Wire, Momentum Builder, there's a self-selection factor of the folks who get on a plane or drive to an event and stay in the hotel. They're people that recognize the benefits of networking community. They recognize the benefits of surrounding themselves with other winners. They recognize the benefits of leaving an event with energy and bringing it back to their office, their team, their hometown. And so you end up with a pretty like positive group of people that come together at these events, and the people that have been winning and finding momentum. And I think a lot about, as an entrepreneur, making sure I'm surrounding myself with people with that bring me energy, not people that suck my energy. Diego
Boom.
Sanchez, who's our president at Housing Wire, him and I talk about that frequently. You might even notice it in your own teams and internally. If you have people that you do a one-on-one with or have a conversation and they pull energy away from you, that is probably not a long-term team member. But the team member who comes to a meeting and brings you energy, whether you're their direct report or they're your direct report, and it leaves you wanting to go run through walls and get more done and push further and support your team better. Like those are the people that I try to surround myself inside of my business and also at our events. So the Housing Wire events are really focused on serving the executive leaders and mortgage lending and real estate brokerage. Don, you've been part of that community, and I'm pumped to support Sales Mastery and Momentum Builder this year because I know it's going to be filled with the originators and sales professionals who bring that same energy that we are
Mhm.
so fortunate to surround ourselves in the executive events.
Yeah, I love that you teed that up, Clayton, and thank you, because I've been going to your events, and it's the same thing. It's the right people. I get totally energized. Everybody shares best practices. They share where they're at. They share, wanting to help. I mean, it's a bunch of givers that are rock stars. We're talking people that are killing it in the market, even in today's world, and they're up there sharing their thoughts. Because I know we have panelists. You're going to have a leadership panel at our event, sharing some Great information. And I'd like to know out of those on this call, who is going to Sales Mastery? I'd like to see how many have already committed to changing their personal and professional lives. I see a thumbs up. I know Phil's gone, and a few of the people on my team, they don't really have a choice. Jen,
And
nice.
Don, I can
Good.
already tell you in my session, I'm gonna focus a lot on talking to the leaders on our panel about the controllables and like how they focus on the things
Oh,
they can control and not the things they can't. And yeah, you notice it at our events. All the executives who are gaining market share right now, a very big focus on the controllables. The first of those is health, and we're seeing a lot of people really emphasize waking up early, working out, eating and consuming the right things during an event. And it's a good reminder that you know that there are some things you can control and some things you can't. Health is one of those, and it really helps people bring their best selves to the workplace and their clients.
I know. I'm glad you brought that up, Clayton, because you see it, and it is trending in the right direction. And I know it's changed mine and Gino's lives completely. Both of us now we're at the gym. Our first meeting a lot of times at 5 o'clock in the morning, and we both lost. Gino's lost 80 pounds. I've lost 30 pounds, and it's changed everything about our energy levels, our focus, and the way we walk in a room. It says a lot when you're confident. You're feeling healthy, you're feeling energized. And that's why, speaking of that, I mean, there's a reason we moved our event from Vegas to Dallas. Couple reasons. But one, of course, we wanted to move it to the center of the country because we want everybody to go there. When we had it at Vegas, the East Coasters or Midwest are like, it's a little bit of a trek. Anybody can get to Dallas really easy. Great town, lot to do there, a lot of fun. Our hotel that we're at is amazing. The other thing, though, is we've learned because there's a rhyme, I mean, a reason to sales mastery. It's not just to party. That's some of the other events. That's why you won't see our tickets at a $99. We want people that are dedicated to improving themselves and be surrounded by those like-minded people. But we also want to leave Vegas because we wanted to eliminate the distractions. We want everybody to be really focused and get something out of the event because an event is useless unless you can apply it. So what's kind of cool is you'll dig on this, Clayton, is that we're actually going to provide the notes from the event, from each session, as well as the slides, whoever's allowing us to share the slides. And it'll have an implementation playbook underneath of how to actually apply what you just learned so that you can really engage with the speaker. Because I know I'm a note taker and I take pictures and all that. So I'm distracted. I'm always like, what did Clayton say? I'm writing it as fast as I can. Shoot, what was that great quote? It's just really tough. And I want that info, but we're going to just supply it to you. And then the slides, I'm taking pictures. That's a great slide. That's a great slide to share. That's great. And I have like 100 slides. We're going to provide those so that you can really listen to Clayton and his leadership panel and the other rainmaker panels that are up there. We have some great people that are going to say, here's how I'm doing over 100 million and here's my plan. And it's nothing over the top. It's not like I have 16 people working for me and you're like, I can't do that. These are relatable professionals that you will align with and go, I can do that. That's all I need to do. And they'll give you the step-by-step process. Of course, we have Coach Michael Burt there. I've got Jim Murphy, the guy who wrote Inner Excellent. That's the book that AJ Brown reads from the Philadelphia Eagles. He reads that on the sidelines. So I worked hard and got the author to that so we can talk about how to build inner excellence. And as a professional athlete, it is imperative. And you're a professional, just mortgage is your sport. I stole that from Sean Panosian, by the way. So we have some great, great speakers. I mean, you'll recognize some. And if you recognize some and go, oh, I've already heard that person before, like Denise or Brian, they're bringing fresh perspectives. I am making sure that it isn't what you've heard in the past. It's all what's relevant today and how they're killing it today. Absolutely killing it. Michelle Berman and Simon Thompson, he's going to talk about the physical side and mindset and being in shape and all that. Sherry Tree is going to share how you can convert better by understanding people's personalities and how to sell to them better and increasing your capture ratio by 5x. We have so many great people on this panel. We have an AI panel, Clayton's leadership panel. It's gonna be fun. We have networking party opening night, and then Clayton, are you in for our cornhole tournament?
I will admit this is the first time learning about the cornhole tournament, but I'm interested.
Well, we just added it because I liked how you did the pickleball thing. It was really good engagement, fun, watching your peeps all play and seeing how they do. I liked watching you out there, seeing how you're doing at pickleball. So we're going to do a celebrity cornhole tournament, and it'll have drinks and food and music, and it'll be a